In the elder law world, we say there are only four kinds of people when it comes to caring for an older adult later in life. There are those who've already done it and been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be called to be caregivers in the future, and those who will just need a caregiver. So that includes everyone, right? Including you out there. That's why this is such a very important topic. Caregiving is a challenge. In fact, if you're called to care sometime in your life for a loved one, especially in their later years, it may constitute the most challenging and stressful seasons of your life. So it deserves some thought and some preparation, of course, from both you and your loved ones. Hi there. Nancy Cogar here with Boomer Time, and I'm glad you've joined me today. How do I know about caregivers? Well, I've been in the shoes of a caregiver twice, really four times. First with my father, and now with my mother. So all this is personal to me. It's why I know how very hard it is and why I know that you need to plan. Okay. I thought it might be helpful to share some of my own stories and, maybe a few others from the caregiving front. 1 in 5 Americans are currently in some role as an unpaid caregiver. 1 in 5. Okay. Maybe that's full time, maybe part time. Most of the time, it is part time on top of other issues in their life. And the caregiving role is usually unpaid work. So if you look at 1 in 5 in our country, that's 53 million people out there who are in that role. And there is no sign that this trend is going to end anytime soon because, it's that silver tsunami I talk about. And it's a giant wave. It's building and it's coming our way. More older adults than any other age group in this country, really in 10 years. So I want you to be better prepared and equipped for the challenges that come with aging and caring for a parent or another loved one. That silver tsunami, you know what that is. That's a wave that comes ashore and wipes out everything in its path. So that's the term that's been given to the graying of America. We baby boomers are getting older. And like I said, that's going to be the biggest age group in the country. So it's going to make things more complicated and it's going to make it harder to get certain kinds of care. So, of course, that means we need to better prepare, right? Both for the physical challenge that comes with that, the actual needs, right? And then your mind and emotional health, because it will take a toll on that. I'm here to tell you that. Also, you're going to have to think about how much it costs. There's a financial commitment that may be there, not to mention balancing the other parts of your life, right? Caregiving, you hear burnout. It's real, folks. It can be the result of that kind of commitment and failing to care for yourself. All that physical, mental exhaustion, burning it at both ends, right? You got work, you got family, you've got your life, and then you've got caregiving you've got to squeeze in there. It's not easy. There are also the emotional challenges. And like I said, the draining, the financial strain, trying to figure out how to provide for your loved one. And not all of us were raised to be nurses or medical technicians, right? So there's stress about medical tasks that may be due in the future. One thing I do want to focus on today is time, because it is one of the biggest challenges that caregivers face, especially when supporting someone who's living with dementia or Alzheimer's, right? From medical appointments to daily care needs, your schedule can fill up before the day even begins. So I wanted to share some stories with you, as you look to both your own personal needs and your family's needs in the future. And I'm hoping by sharing these with you, maybe it'll encourage you, give you the ability to think through these things, give you a starting point, because you need to plan. I'll be right back. Well, welcome back. I said I was going to share a few stories today. I want to share my own personal walk as caregiver of first my father and then my mother. I did all that, all the while maintaining my practice, helping others with planning, busy law practice, happily married family, friends, personal life, and, interests, trying to stay healthy. It's really had a real impact on me. You know, it's why I do what I do. It's the reason I started Boomer Time. I want to share how important it is to plan. I know I keep saying that, but it's the key, folks. And I want to also sound the alert as to what you might expect moving forward if you haven't found yourself in that role as a caregiver. Or maybe you've, seen it in your past and, there's something to share. Share that with someone else because a lot of people don't know anything about what to expect or what to do until they find themselves in the midst of it. And of course, that doesn't help either, right? The other part of this is if you're looking for help from the government, I'm here to tell you how difficult that is right now, currently, obviously, and how much more difficult and scarce that type of help may be in the future. I just see it and I want you to plan. So it just supports planning even more. Like I said, altogether, I've had 4 experiences with end of life in my family. First, my in laws, the Cogars, Yvette and Lee. They've passed on, but even in their declining years, I learned a lot about what's important and what isn't, what to cherish, and what just doesn't need your attention. Throw it away. As my dad would tell me, don't sweat the small stuff, Nancy. Don't sweat the small stuff. Life's just a vapor, right? You're here today and then you're gone tomorrow. Don't stay obsessed with petty, really important things. I have some of that in my life and I have to sort through it. So many relationships are just fractured by meaningless disagreements or misunderstandings. Sometimes people forget why they're even mad. I've got a lot of that comes into my office. I'm going to give you the same advice that I give a lot of them. If you have the opportunity to fix it, do it. Plan for however you want to plan, but heal those wounds while you can. If you can, you're not going to regret it, but you will absolutely regret it if you hold on to that garbage. I hear it all the time. So, what's it like? What will I have to do as a caregiver? I have no idea, right? What can I do to plan, prepare? I feel forced into this. I'm not ready. How much is it going to cost me? What about the money? I can't pay for that. What about the time? What about my schooling, my career development, family, friends? I don't have a lot of those to begin with. Well, there's going to be a price because it's very hard to balance those things. But what if you don't think you can meet the needs as a caregiver? That's a question a lot of people are afraid to ask, but it's very real. You need to consider these things. So I thought by sharing my experiences with my 2 parents might be helpful to you today. So my father, who has since passed away, and my mother, who both my husband Gary and I currently support, we've been in those caregiving shoes. So I've experienced both the challenges of long distance caregiving to having your parents in your house full time, managing day to day with ongoing medical care. And, now my mom's in assisted living. I think by sharing this with you, I consider myself a fairly transparent person. I hope you see that in the podcast, but I don't have anything to hide. And if you think there's something wrong with me sharing this, well, I don't really care. Okay. You have a choice, and so do I. I think you should plan and you learn from other people. So I would love for you to share your caregiving story if you have one. And you can share that right at my website, nancycogar.com. your story can help someone else. Think about sharing it. Tell me what your successes were, your failures, things you wish you did differently. I, I'd love to hear it. Well, the first story, of course, is with my father. My father and I had a very close relationship. It was special. But he was living in New York City. I live in Tennessee. So, how do you do that? Well, it led to long distance caregiving. New York City is 818 miles one way from Chattanooga. So I put in tens, probably hundreds of thousands of miles over the years. I kind of imagine putting a rut right into the Smoky Mountains, tracking back and forth, but I'm glad I did it. It was expensive. It was difficult. I couldn't be in both places at once, so it took a lot of choices. And I tell you, the decline for my father, at least, was gradual, more long term. He was a lifelong smoker. He had arthritis in his hands, immobility caused because of that arthritis. Then he got hearing loss, couldn't hear a word I was saying, had hearing aids but didn't wear them. Then had vascular dementia as he declined further. I made a commitment to see him at least once a month. Once a month from Chattanooga to New York City. What was that like? It was expensive. Came out of my pocket. It was time consuming. Certainly wasn't convenient. And tried to fill it in with some long distance calls so I could keep tabs on what was happening. And that worked until I told you my father's hearing went. Another challenge, he had a long-term relationship with a woman he just never married. My parents got divorced and he met this woman. And, that's a whole nother separate episode. But it made the challenge even more difficult because she got dementia as well. And keeping them together, maintaining stability in New York City, and not being married, so there's no legal rights. My two brothers, one lives in New York and the other lives in Boston. They were more hands-on as far as my father's care was concerned. But, that's important, I think, when you looking at just geographically who's best able to caregive, if anyone at all. Because then you're going to have to look at hiring someone, right? In my family, I'm the oldest. My father, like I said, we had a really special relationship. And that's why I made the commitment to see him that often. I've got my brothers. Not everyone had that. I also had the support of my husband, Gary. So he's been a champion through this whole thing. I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. So as my father declined, of course, it took more trips to New York, more trips when he was in the hospital, more trips when the doctor needed to talk about a significant issue. It was expensive. And then when I came home here, of course, I was worried about what was going on up there while I'm down here. I was also managing my father's finances from afar. Thank God for electronic banking. But, if you're 800 and some odd miles away, it's difficult to know what the day-to-day needs are, especially if someone can't really articulate that. So we had to have people come in. That was another expense. Back home, business demands. I just was dog tired. And then towards the end of my life, my father wanted to be with me. And I tell you, this was in the midst of COVID, okay? So I transported him from New York to Chattanooga, which you can imagine is not cheap. And initially, he moved into a nursing home because I thought maybe that might be the best thing for him, but not the best thing for him. And during COVID, I was standing outside the window, like you've heard so many people doing, and he was waving at me and asking me to come in. But I couldn't, right? We weren't allowed to go in. I remember being at Walmart one day, and I was looking for salad fixings or something like that. And my dad called me on the phone and he said, Nance, I don't think I'm going to be here much longer. I want to come home. That's when he was in the nursing home. He'd only been there a couple weeks. So I brought him home to my home, brought in hospice, put a bed in where what used to be my dining room, along with medical equipment. I don't regret a day of it. He died October 4th, 2020. So this year, it'll be 5 years. It was a tough time. You know, it took a while to even grieve because of so much we had done in leading up to that. So I mentioned my mother, right? Well, caregiving for my mom, I'm currently in that role, and it looks very different from the needs and challenges of my father. My mom, she was in Florida. You may have family in Florida. And I moved her up here to Tennessee about a little over 10 years ago. So she's here. And so this is local caregiving, different type of relationship with her, different challenges, right? Different needs. Initially it took deconstructing everything she had in Florida, consolidating her home, her lifetime of memories, all of that, and trying to build a new comfortable life for her here. Balancing my mom's needs with my career, my law practice. It's not easy. I needed time for the rest of my family as well. Do you feel that stress out there? Are you in it now? Do you see this on the horizon? You're not alone. That's why I am sharing this with you today. And I encourage you to share your own story with me, as I mentioned, nancycogar.com. So I'm still in the midst of this second season with my mom. First time I had her in my house. She brought along several dogs with her. So I had, at one point, my husband, myself, my godson, my mother, her friend, and 5 dogs. That was not easy. All in my 1,800 square foot house. So that was a challenge. We did it, but then we learned that's not the best circumstance. And my mom and I wanted some space, some independence. So I found her an apartment that was both affordable and accessible. And she stayed there for a couple of years. But she was isolated. I will tell you, if you're considering that, make sure they're not isolated. And because of that isolation and the decline, we moved her into what's known as independent living, which is essentially an apartment in a facility that has, joined eating times with people all over 55 years old. So she stayed there, enjoyed that for a while. There were still some challenges. She didn't drive anymore. She needed transportation. The facility, someone was always quitting. There's labor shortage, no one to drive the bus, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it worked well. Then my mother had a fall. She broke her collarbone. Then she got diagnosed with cancer. Went through chemo, radiation. Earlier this year, she had a stroke. This is a challenge that every one of us is going to face, whether you're in it already or whether it's in the future. So you're going to have to find yourself in one of these scenarios. Like I said, what are you going to do? What are you going to ask? What are they going to say? What do your parents think? Are they unrealistic? Well, that's important. You got to address that issue. Are you going to be able to work and continue to do this? Are there people that can help? It's not easy. What are you going to do with this challenge? I hope it's helped to share my own personal stories. I always find it helps to hear someone's story. And hey, I'm a lawyer. I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney. I do this for a living. It wasn't easy for me. So if I'm a professional who does this professionally, you need help. So want to sit down and have a strategy session, contact me and I can help you through it. But you need to find someone you relate to, trust, and who can help you with things specific to your own needs. Most people are not aware of this until it comes on you, like I said. So I'm going to end it today by saying, please have these conversations. Have them at a designated time. Have them when everyone's in the right frame of mind, or at least as much as possible. Involve the family. Don't get mad if there's somebody in the family that doesn't want to participate. Some people just can't handle it, financially, emotionally, whatever. Just know, designate, and identify the tools that you have, the supports. And if you're not able to do it, and nobody else is, well, you're going to have to deal with that too. You're going to have to look at money, what's available, what's not available, and how much is it going to cost? Can you make that work? These are all things I help with all the time. So I hope you found this helpful. Let me know what you think. Want to ask me a question about my experiences? Go for it. Okay? All right. Well, I appreciate you listening in, and I'll see you next time on Boomer Time.